Shalom everyone, thank you for coming to our channel. We are Beth Kados Ministry, and today I'm going to explain about the parable of the prodigal son. And the parable of the prodigal son in the Christian church is interpreted in a way that it's not wrong, but it's not referring to what it's supposed to be, because when one person received Yeshua in their heart, everyone is happy, and this parable is about two sons. One stayed with his father, and the other son go to out of his house to a country far away from his house, and spend all his money, all his property. And when this son returned, the older son that stays with the father gets mad. And in the Christian church, when somebody receives Yeshua in their heart, nobody gets mad. Everybody is happy. That's what I'm saying, that this parable is not referring to like it was interpreted in the church, because no one in the church gets mad when somebody receives Yeshua in their heart. On the contrary, everyone is happy because somebody has been saved. This parable, we see that the other son, when the son that left the house returned, the other son gets mad. And nobody gets mad in the church. No one get mad in the church when somebody receive Yeshua in their heart, when somebody come to the church. And the reason why I'm explaining this is that this parable is referring to the house of Judah and the house of Israel. The house of Judah is the son that stayed with the father. The house of Judah never always celebrated the father feast that are written in Leviticus 23. The house of Judah is the Jews people that are our brothers, and they never have stopped celebrating the Shabbat. They always celebrate Shabbat. They never they always celebrate Pesach, or Passover, Hag Matzah, and Shavuot, Bikurim, Yom Kippur, they call Yom Teruah Rosh Hashanah. And for us, the believer in Yeshua, Yom Teruah is when Yeshua is returning to pick his people of Israel, that we know that we are Israel through the blood of Yeshua. But the house of Judah this parable is referring to the house of Judah and the house of Israel. The house of Judah are the Jewish people that they always have been celebrating Yahweh's feast, greeting in Leviticus 23, and the other son refer to the house of Israel, the 10 tribes. Remember that the 12 tribes were divided when King Solomon made sin, and he offered incense to Ashtoreth, and Yahweh divided. That was the reason that Yahweh divided 12 tribes, and 3 tribes stayed in Israel, and the other tribes Yahweh took them out from Israel. And the house in the house the 3 tribes that stayed in Israel were the house of Judah, the house of Benjamin, and the house of Levi. Those 3 tribes formed the house of Judah, that are the Jews that we know today. And the other 10 tribes, Yahweh took them out from the land of Israel, and they get mixed among the nations. And some of those tribes maybe is you and me, that we were in the church, in the Catholic Church, or in the different denominations, but that is the house of Israel. Everyone and every Gentile that get to know Yeshua come to be people of Israel, not a Gentile church, as we mislearned, because we that is a very a bad name, that if Christian says that they are Gentile church, there is no covenant with a Gentile church. The covenant, if you read in the book of Hebrew 8, chapter 8, it says that the days are coming, says Yahweh, that where I will make a new covenant with the house of Judah and the house of Israel. And the church, in the Christian church, always says that the Gentile church is the new covenant is with the Gentile church. But the name of the Gentile church is Israel, not Gentile, because the word Gentile is somebody far away from God. It's a person that worship idols. And if you know Yeshua, you don't worship idols. You are a believer in Yeshua, and you are Israel. And that means that if you are in a church, you are Israel. You're not a Gentile or a spiritual Israel, or a church that replaced Israel. No, you are Israel. You are those 10 part of the 10 tribes that never came back to the land of Israel. But now that you know Yeshua, you are Israel through the blood of Yeshua. And this is what I'm trying to explain, that the son that stayed with the father in the parable of the prodigal son, and greeting in the book of Luke 15, that parable is referring to the Jews, and they are called in the Torah the house of Judah, and the house of Israel are the 10 tribes that Yahweh took out from the land of Israel, and that those 10 tribes are among the different denominations, and it's probably that you are a physical part of the tribes, of the 10 tribes, but if you are not, once you know Yeshua, you get you become an Israelite. You're not a Gentile anymore, and that is the house of Israel. So this parable is referring to two houses. The son that stay in the houses are the Jews, that they never lost their identity. They always celebrate the Father's feast, and we. And the other house is the house of Israel, that is you and me, that we know Yeshua, But the bad thing, the bad concept that we learn is that we learn in the Christian church is that we are a spiritual Israel, or we are a Gentile church, and those concept does not exist in the Torah. The Torah, that Yahweh is making the covenant with the house of Judah and the house of Israel, and that is we are the son. That parable refers to us, that we, as we know Yeshua, we are returning to celebrate Yahweh's feast. We are and the son that gets mad is the Jews. Sometimes they get mad. They get mad because they don't understand that we are the son. That son, Israel. All the believers in Yeshua are Israel. That is returning to Yahweh. Is returning to the house, and this is written that the Jews will be jealous. The Jews will be mad. They will be mad because we are returning to the Torah. We are returning to celebrate Yahweh's feast, written in Leviticus 23. We are returning to our true day of worshiping, our true day of rest, and there is and Yahweh is happy, but the Jews are not happy, and that is the son that get mad. That what this parable mean. The son that get mad is the Jews, and the other the son that return is everyone who knew Yeshua, that now is returning to the Torah, is returning to celebrate Yahweh's feast, because it is a privilege to return to the Torah, and we were far away from the Torah. We mislearned in the church that the Torah, the law of God, of Yahweh, was abolished. But it's not abolished. It's not the Yahweh's feast are for us. We in the Christian church we went to the church on Sunday because we believe that everyone, that the pastor or the one that was in front of us was saying was true, but Sunday is not the day of rest. The day of rest is the seventh day, and we are returning to our true identity, to return to the Bible, to return what we once lost, because we lost the Shabbat. We believe in Yeshua, but we believe in Yeshua and we love Yeshua with all our heart. But the wrong thing that we were doing is that we were resting in the first day of the week. We were celebrating other feasts that are not in the Torah. We were far away from the Torah. We always thought that the Torah was just for the Jewish people, that the feasts from Leviticus 23 were just for the Jews, that those wrong concepts that we learn in the church. But now Yahweh is calling us to return as the prodigal son, as the son that went out and now is returning. Yahweh wants every Christian to return, everyone who believes in Yeshua to come to his feast. Those Yahweh's feasts are not Jews' feasts. It is true that the Jews has been celebrated Yahweh's feast for centuries, but those feasts are not Jews as we thought that they are a Jews' feast. Those are written in the Torah for us to believe in Yeshua. Yeshua fulfilled every feast. Yeshua himself celebrated all Yahweh's feasts. And if we are his disciples, and if we love Yeshua, Yeshua says, if you love me, keep my commandments. And that's what we have to do if we believe in Yeshua. Follow his steps. Celebrate Yahweh's feast written in Leviticus 23. Return to his commandments. Eat clean animals as it is written in the Torah. And because we mislearn in the church that if we just pray for the food, we can eat whatever we wanna eat, but that is not true. If we read in Leviticus 11, there is specifically what we have to eat, what animals we can eat and what animals we cannot eat. And the vision of Peter has been misinterpreted in the church, that Peter says don't call unclean what Yahweh created, but he didn't. That vision was not about food. That vision means that Yahweh was showing Peter that he has to preach everyone. He didn't have to make exceptions. He had to preach everyone. He had to preach everyone from every nation, every tongue, from all nations, different. It doesn't matter what. How can I say this? He had to preach everyone. He didn't have to make exceptions. So that's what that vision means. But in the Christian church, we understood that it referred to food, and we just need to pray. We just needed to pray, and nothing is going to happen. But no, that is not true. The Christian church really needs to recognize to do the next step. The next step is come to the Torah, recognize that you are an Israelite, and you are not a entire church or a spiritual Israel or a Israel that replace, or a church that replaces Israel and returns to the true Shabbat, to the true day of rest. The true day of rest is start Friday night to Saturday night. And the Levitic, and the feast from Leviticus 23, and the commandments, and that is the prodigal son. We are that prodigal son that is returning to the Torah, and I want to explain you this, and give you the true meaning of the parable of the prodigal son. That is not what we that it's supposed to mean. And thank you for watching our videos, and Yahweh bless you, and shalom to everyone.